Now, Man United dominated their headlines over Christmas with some really worrying results in the league and even more off-the-field controversy with fresh cuts proposed by INEOS. It's already feeling like one of the most newsworthy seasons in decades at the club. Here to discuss the current state of affairs at Old Trafford, I'm delighted to welcome in the Athletics Manchester United correspondent, Mr. Laurie Whitwell. Laurie, good to see you. It's not been the easiest of times for Man United of late. How much has the performance at Anfield, how much has that done to ease the pressure at Manchester United?
I think it's been big because I think if they'd lost that game, certainly in the way that everybody was expecting in terms of Liverpool walking away with it, I think the scrutiny would have been on INEOS, on Ruben Amorim, on the players certainly. So I think the performance level for a collective, a lot of individual really good performances as well. I think that sort of just gives a little bit of breathing room, a little bit of time, and shows that actually maybe with additional days on the training pitch that Ruben Amorim had, that you can actually get a tune out of these players. I know that Bruno Fernandes and Amorim after the game said that it was all about application effort and they need to see this again against Southampton in the next league game. But I do feel like there's something to be said for a little bit of extra time on the training pitches as well.
How much does that result, do you think, raise the mood around the training ground? Because it would have been pretty low after the Newcastle debacle. There were some suggestions on the back of that maybe Ruben Amorim already had to abandon his playing style and his tactics. Does this empower the manager in many ways?
I think so because, the system has been the big talking point, right? I mean, the fact that these players, in the large majority don't seem suited to this style. Clearly, there's going to have to be work done in the transfer market, but there's no money to spend. So how the hell does that happen? But I feel that actually this sort of shows that in certain ways, in certain games, they can produce a performance. And I just think that, that the mood will have been lifted immeasurably. I think a lot of people went into that game, from all levels of the club thinking the worst. And for them to come out of it in credit, they could have won it at the end. I think it just gives them a bit of belief that actually, if they can kind of stay together, try hard, then it can actually have some success.
Obviously, one of the main talking points has been things that have been going on off the pitch, INEOS, how things have been going. What is your overall assessment so far of the job that they've been doing? Because I know we've kind of went into it feeling quite positive. I think a lot of fans felt quite positive. And you look at this, I think, Cookie described it like a comedy of errors almost. What's been your take on how they've been handling things?
Yeah, I mean, they've come in with a big agenda for change, right? Where they're trying to put football as they see it at the heart of the club, whereas previously it perhaps been, commercial revenues that had been the focus. So they've stripped a lot of things back. Obviously the redundancies that have been made, it's caused a lot of heartache, a lot of hurt, and a lot of people at the club are in a low mood about the place because of what they see as unnecessary cuts. We're talking about additional trimming of the former Players Association, the Disabled Supporters Association. So they're aspects that I don't think are going to win any PR points for Sir Jim Ratcliffe. But I think what we have seen is that he doesn't really give too much consideration for that. He will do what he thinks is right, and what he thinks is right is to make all levels of the club streamlined. And so that kind of, breeds a certain mentality, not just amongst the staff, but amongst the players. That being said, I think that it does have an impact. And I think that the mood around Carrington and Old Trafford has been affected severely by it. And how much does that creep into what the players are thinking and what the players are doing on the pitch? It's kind of a fascinating dynamic to see. I mean, they've been in control, they've had the keys to the place for like a year, since Boxing Day, also since Christmas Eve, actually, 2023. So they've, had a large amount of time, I think, to instill what they, want to do at the club. But clearly they've had, some mistakes, the contract extension to Eric Ten Hag, the hiring and firing of Dan Ashworth. I think they're really big errors. They will feel that they've got the right man in place in Ruben Amorim, but as we've seen with the results on the pitch, it's not going to be a smooth sail.
Yeah, it's definitely not been easy, Laurie. And I think we're probably looking at it saying as fans, okay, you've come in. It's been many, many years of mismanagement by the Glazers that isn't going to be fixed in 1 year. You've made some mistakes in year one. Now it's about looking forward. Can you start making some good decisions and backing the manager, et cetera, et cetera. I did see on your piece after the game, you had massive praise and you sung the praises of Manuel Ugarte. Was this rough patch for him like a real education for the new arrivals? Would it be beneficial for them in the long run to have learnt the levels of what we really are? That shock, basically, what Amorim's been talking about, to really understand where we are, so they can, bring their levels higher. Because Manuel Ugarte does seem to be one since Ruben Amorim's come in. I've seen a couple of pieces from Samuel Luckhurst as well, sort of suggesting that Amorim's been a real catalyst for Ugarte, which you could imagine because he's had him at Sporting.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been a warm welcome for Ugarte, hasn't it, into the life of a Manchester United player. And it's been rough, and it's interesting that when he first joined, Erik ten Hag, took his time to put him in the team. I think his first game was against Spurs, first start anyway, and he didn't have a good game there. Mickey van der Ven blasted past him inside the first sort of few minutes. And I think that was Erik ten Hag's concern over signing him. Would he be robust enough for the Premier League? Would he be sharp enough? And so I think that was probably one of those discussions where it wasn't a certainty until the very end. Obviously, it happened on deadline day pretty much. I think Erik ten Hag really liked what Scott McTominay did last season, knew he had goals in him, so was kind of reluctant to let him go. But the club wanted to basically get some more money into the accounts, and selling a homegrown player is the surest way to do that. So it wasn't a kind of... I think Erik ten Hag ultimately was certainly on board with the signing, but I think it was one where it kind of needed a bit of time to kind of work out exactly when he could play him and then also in what style. And I think Ruben Amorim, obviously having worked with him at Sporting before, knows what he can get out of him. And I think it just showed that actually does have physicality to mix it in the Premier League, because you've got a midfield there in Liverpool, which are running through a lot of teams. And I think Ugarte certainly held his own and then some, to be honest. I think he covered a lot of ground and he did some really nice stuff in terms of breaking up possession and even putting some passes forwards. And yeah, that one that I kind of focusing on my piece, Flex, as I thought, a lot of people were telling me, is that deliberate? Was that deliberate? But I look back and he's checking his shoulder.
You knew what he was doing.
Yeah. I thought he did, I thought he checked his shoulder, saw Fernandes free, and because the angle of it was just such an acute one that I don't think he's fluffed that, basically, if he was trying to aim for somebody else. So I don't know, I want to give him credit for that pass, and that does then give a lot of belief in what he might be able to do going forward.
Well, listen, Laurie, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. I'm sure over this next few weeks, with the January transfer window, it's going to be a lot of reporting for you to do. So we'll let you get back to it, and we'll see you again on the show very, very soon, mate.
Thanks, guys. Cheers for having me.
Nice one.